The 20th century saw a dramatic transformation in American food culture, reflecting the nation's social, economic, and technological changes. From home-cooked meals to fast food empires, the way Americans ate evolved significantly over these 100 years. The early 1900s were characterized by home-cooked meals made from locally sourced ingredients. Most families still lived in rural areas or small towns, and many grew their own vegetables and raised livestock for meat and dairy products. The rise of industrialization and urbanization in the early 20th century began to change eating habits. As more people moved to cities, they became dependent on stores and markets for their food, leading to the growth of grocery stores and supermarkets. World War I had a significant impact on American food culture. Food rationing and victory gardens became common, teaching Americans to be resourceful with their ingredients and sparking interest in home canning and preserving. The 1920s saw the rise of convenience foods. Products like sliced bread, canned goods, and frozen foods became increasingly popular, changing the way Americans shopped for and prepared meals. Prohibition, 1920 to 1933, had a lasting effect on American dining culture. While alcohol was illegal, many restaurants turned to elaborate food presentations and non-alcoholic beverages to attract customers, influencing future dining trends. The Great Depression of the 1930s forced many Americans to adapt their eating habits. Cheap, filling foods like casseroles and one-pot meals became staples, and government programs introduced new ingredients like powdered milk to struggling families. World War II brought about another period of rationing, but also introduced Americans to new foods through soldiers returning from overseas. This exposure to international cuisines would influence American palates for decades to come. The post-war economic boom of the 1950s saw a surge in consumer goods, including kitchen appliances. Refrigerators, electric mixers, and later, microwave ovens revolutionized home cooking and food storage. The 1950s also marked the beginning of the fast food era. McDonald's, founded in 1955, pioneered the assembly line approach to food service, forever changing American eating habits and spawning countless imitators. Suburban living in the 1950s and 60s gave rise to backyard barbecues and patio dining, creating new social rituals around food and outdoor entertaining. The 1960s saw an increased interest in international cuisines, particularly Chinese and Italian foods. Spaghetti and meatballs became an American staple, while chop suey and chow mein gained popularity. Health food movements began to gain traction in the 1960s and 70s, with increased awareness of nutrition and the negative effects of processed foods. This led to the growth of health food stores and organic products. The 1970s marked the beginning of the gourmet food movement in America. Influenced by chefs like Julia Child, more Americans began experimenting with haute cuisine at home. Fast food continued to expand rapidly in the 1970s and 80s, with chains like Burger King, Wendy's, and Kentucky Fried Chicken becoming ubiquitous across the American landscape. The 1980s saw a boom in fad diets and low-fat products as Americans became increasingly health-conscious. This led to a proliferation of diet and light versions of popular foods. Ethnic food options expanded greatly in the 1980s and 90s, with Mexican, Thai, Indian, and other international cuisines becoming widely available in many parts of the country. The rise of food TV in the 1990s, led by the Food Network, transformed cooking from a household chore into a form of entertainment and sparked a new generation of celebrity chefs. Organic and locally sourced foods gained prominence in the 1990s and 2000s, with farmers' markets and farm-to-table restaurants becoming increasingly popular. The turn of the millennium saw a renewed interest in artisanal and craft foods, from artisan breads and cheeses to craft beers and small-batch spirits. Coffee culture exploded in the late 20th century, with Starbucks leading the charge. specialized coffee drinks, and third-wave coffee shops became a significant part of American food culture. The obesity epidemic became a major concern in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, leading to increased focus on healthier eating habits and government initiatives to improve nutrition. Food allergies and dietary restrictions gained more attention in the late 20th century, leading to more diverse menu options and increased awareness in food preparation. Fusion cuisine became popular in the 1990s and 2000s, blending elements from different culinary traditions and creating new, innovative dishes. The advent of the internet and later, social media, transformed how Americans shared recipes, discovered new foods, and showcased their culinary creations. Meal kit delivery services emerged in the early 21st century, offering a middle ground between home cooking and takeout and introducing many Americans to new ingredients and recipes. The slow food movement, originating in the 1980s but gaining traction in the 2000s, emphasized traditional cooking methods and locally sourced ingredients as a counterpoint to fast food culture. Energy drinks and smoothies became popular in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, reflecting changing attitudes towards nutrition and convenience. The rise of veganism and plant-based diets in the late 20th and early 21st centuries led to an explosion of meat alternatives and dairy-free products. Food trucks experienced a renaissance in the early 21st century, offering gourmet and ethnic foods in a casual, mobile format. The farm-to-table movement gained momentum in the early 21st century, emphasizing fresh, locally sourced ingredients and transparent food sourcing. Molecular gastronomy and modernist cuisine emerged in the late 20th century, pushing the boundaries of traditional cooking techniques and presentation. The cupcake craze of the early 2000s spawned numerous specialty bakeries and sparked interest in other gourmet dessert trends. Gluten-free diets became increasingly common in the early 21st century, leading to a wide range of gluten-free products and menu options. The craft beer revolution of the late 20th and early 21st centuries transformed American beer culture, emphasizing flavor, variety, and local production. Food blogs and social media influencers became significant forces in shaping food trends and sharing recipes in the 21st century. The locavore movement, emphasizing eating foods grown locally, gained traction in the early 21st century as a way to support local economies and reduce carbon footprints. Superfoods and functional foods became popular in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, reflecting increased interest in using food for specific health benefits. The rise of food delivery apps in the 21st century further changed how Americans interact with restaurants and access prepared meals. Sustainable and ethical eating became increasingly important to many consumers in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, influencing both home cooking and restaurant choices. As we reflect on the evolution of American food culture in the 20th century, we see a story of innovation, diversity, and adaptation. From the home-cooked meals of the early 1900s to the global fusion cuisines of the 2000s, American food has been shaped by technological advancements, cultural exchanges, health concerns, and changing social norms. The journey of American food culture through the 20th century reflects the larger narrative of American society, one of rapid change, cultural melding, and constant reinvention. As we move further into the 21st century, it's clear that this evolution continues, with new trends, technologies, and global influences constantly reshaping how Americans think about, prepare, and consume food.